Alright, I have 6 o'clock, so we'll call the meeting to order. We do have one addition to the agenda that will go under B at the end, be after the executive session. And that will be a motion to accept the resignation of Deb Kennecke from the dual school district, or however Blaine ends up wording that. So with that addition, do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So move.
Second.
Michelle?
Any questions on anything in there? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Conflict of interest disclosures, assuming none. Need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion.
Second.
Can I ask state your name? I'm not sure I'm not getting an ear infection when I'm not hearing real well.
Sure.
Sure.
Jessica?
So that was Jess and Wade. Any questions on anything in the consent agenda? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to approve payment of February bills.
Motion. Michelle.
Second, Jessica?
Any questions on anything in the bills? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public comment and visitors, welcome. Does anybody have any comments? Okay. Moving to recognitions. Our high school students of the month for March. Carly Manier in science, Emma Bass, social studies, Elizabeth DeBoer in ELA, Jade Adolph in CTE, Elise Hotzler in math, and Grant Gubrud in fine arts. The elementary and middle school stuff, Mr. Ralph is going to go through in his report when we get to that. State gymnastics results. Obviously, we were, again, the Class A state champions for the third consecutive time, which is obviously impressive. Individual awards for the vault. Paige Simon was state champion. Rachel Blue was second. Annabelle Hawley 11th on the bars. Morgan Kwasniewski champion. Paige Simon second place. Rachel Blue third. Brooklyn Peterson 10th. Balance beam. Paige Simon state champ. Morgan Kwasniewski third. Brooklyn Peterson 6th. Elise Hotzler 7th. Rachel Blue 10th. Annabelle Hawley 13th. On the floor, Rachel Blue state champ. Paige Simon 2nd. Morgan Kwasniewski 3rd. Annabelle Hawley 6th. Brooklyn Peterson 8th. Elise Hotzler 12th. And in the all-around, Paige Simon was the all-around state champion. Morgan Kwasniewski and Rachel Blue were in 2nd, and Brooklyn Peterson 6th. So obviously very impressive again. Any other recognitions that need to be added now? Okay. Move to reports and discussion with Mr. Schoenbeck.
My report is on page 29. Let's start with the legislative update. And actually today I didn't email or text you guys. We got some great news. If you watch the news, Governor Noem put out that they are going to fund education at 2%. So going from 0 to following the law is exactly what everybody in education wanted. So that was extremely good news. Last I had heard that they were looking at hopefully coming up with 1.1 and then some one-time money, whatever that would have looked like. So I don't know if that was the plan the whole time from the beginning, but I'm glad that they followed the law. That's all that we've asked. So there's 2 bills out there right now that I've been keeping close tabs on, and they're about the last 2 because the session wraps up this week. And I didn't see the outcome of this. I think this was heard on the floor today. That was Senate Bill 144, and that's the dual credit bill. Currently, we have a number of kids, as does every other district, that take dual credit courses at a third of the cost, meaning the students pay the third and the institution pays the other 2/3. Kids are coming out of here with credits at a pretty cheap rate, and we did not, number one, want to see that program go away, but number 2, tack on more dollars for students that have to pay that. So the proposed legislation out there right now was that they would split it in half. So half would be paid by the students and half would be paid by the institution. So we'll see where that goes. I think it's going to have a negative impact on districts or some kids that simply still can't afford to take those classes. So we've been very vocal. I know the schools in District 4 have talked about how important this is and how we need it, and we don't want to pass that on to the kids. And personally, I don't know as if all of them heard it, because I heard that one today was all for supporting this and passing it on and turning around and putting that money. That would be more money that they could put towards education. So basically charging our high school students to fund education in future years, which seems a little ironic to me. So those are two good things. This Senate Bill 170 is the one I've been in contact with you guys. This is originated from the governor's office. That was to up the $2,800 cap in capital outlay from $2,800 to $3,000. There was another bill out there that was to go from $2,800 to $3,800, and I think this was the plan the whole time, was to merge the two and land in between, which is what they did. It unanimously went through Senate, the House, and it's on the governor's desk from what I know. So considering it's her bill, I don't see why that would not go through. So that's going to be a good thing. It gives us a little bit more room in capital outlay, which was probably the one thing we wanted going into this to come to fruition. So second thing on here was the Strider bikes, the program that I had talked to you guys about. I have since been in contact. I told you I talked to a couple of other schools that are doing this. It's basically, you can do it outside of the school, or you can integrate it into your kindergarten PE courses. So I've talked to our PE instructors. Todd and I have talked quite a bit on this. We're going to move forward with this. I talked to the gal. This is out in Rapid City. It's about a $4,500 expenditure, and we'd be looking at between 25 and 27 bikes, and the turnaround is fairly quick. So we actually have a dual school foundation that has been acquiring money for quite some time. It was actually the money that was given to the district from the Goodwin School District quite some time ago and placed into the foundation maybe 10 years ago. Since then, I know Deb was on that board with obviously Blaine and Rita Scheffelbein and myself. I think we've tapped into it once for our Midway kids to go to NESODAC. So I thought that would be a great program, and it fits the purpose of that foundation money. So I am going to pursue that and hopefully get something in play where they can utilize them this spring. The coronavirus, I know you guys have all watched TV extensively. It's about all you hear on TV right now. Obviously, here in South Dakota, we are not exempt from this, and I think the more you watch it every day, as it keeps getting closer and closer, and it may be a point where it's not if, when it's going to hit here. So the DOE, our parent groups, ASBSD, have been in contact with the districts and have told us, I've basically sent an email out to staff, basically treat it the same as you do with flu symptoms. Quarantine, stay at home if you feel like you're sick. I've talked with Jack and the custodial staff about doing an extra cleaning on touch points like telephones, desks, things like that. So everybody's taking a little bit more time to do a little bit more cleansing. I think the one thing that administratively we need to talk about is in the event that schools get shut down, which it's starting in places in the United States. So I think we have the tools here to hopefully, and I don't know if this will ever come or happen, but where we could do something distance-wise, similar to what we did with snow packets or something like that, an e-learning day of sorts. But I had a superintendent's meeting last week, and it's obviously a concern for most of the districts and how we're handling it and what are what are we gonna do? So everybody's kind of in the same boat, so. Strategic planning, I've got strategic planning scheduled for next Monday. As of even today, 3/5 of the board had sent in what they wanted to have as topics. And these are some of the topics that came out of the three that turned their stuff in. Communication, trust between board and administration, having the district become an educational leader, and then obviously community relations. I'm going to throw this out to you as a board right now. Granted, those are some talking points that he's gonna have, but I talked to Jim on the phone today after finding out that Deb is resigning. If this is something that we want to do, we had 3 of the 5 turn stuff in. Deb is resigning. Luke is coming off. If this is something that we want to do next Monday, he's a little hesitant, but at the same time, he wants to know if it's going to be useful coming up here next Monday or if we want to wait. So I told Jim that I would pose that to the board and get some feedback from you guys.
I guess my initial thought is I would proceed from the standpoint that I guess from you as administration, I guess would be pretty involved in this process as well. So that part doesn't change. It's going to be a longer process. We aren't going to figure it all out in the first meeting. So I guess I would like to see it move forward.
Good.
I agree.
When would the interim person start?
Could be as soon as next month, which is something we'll address in executive session tonight.
And we can talk further on the strategic planning too later, probably after that executive session. I'm good moving forward with it. Myself, I would like to wait a month until, at least till the new person's in. Just because.
It would be nice to have them clued in, I guess.
Yeah, instead
Be my
of
only thought.
instead of missing a meeting.
It's a pretty important meeting.
You want to wait? and just-
But we could discuss that a little bit
Yep.
later too. We can probably bring that up again after executive
That's
session
fine.
if that works.
Yep, that's fine. Next thing I got 2 things that I didn't have on my agenda that actually came up. Actually, one of them came up since I've submitted my board report. I had 2 teachers come in. Bonnie Tacroni and Amy Tweet came into my office on Friday, and they had an absolute wonderful idea. Obviously, we know our math scores are not what they should be, and we've tackled the reading aspect of things over the summertime with the summer reading program, which I think has been extremely beneficial. We've had great turnout. We run it June and July for 2 days a week for a couple hours, and it's been good. They had brought up to me, how could we possibly do something similar with math? And kind of piggyback on what the reading program is doing, and those 2 would spearhead it. So I had actually told those 2 to come draft something up for me in terms of what they would need for supplies and times and what it would actually look like. So they are gung-ho about it. I think it would be a great thing over the summertime. And they kind of sold it to me in terms of that it's not necessarily going to be a drill and practice classroom type thing, more so that it's going to be a hands-on, doing some fun things that relate to math and fill some of those gaps that we're deficient in that they don't necessarily get. So I'll report more on that when I get to the bottom of it with those 2. So the last thing I had on here was superintendent job description. I did a job description with Blaine when we started the new policy review. I had him take a look at it, and he reviewed some of the things he does and doesn't do. We do have an existing policy in the old manual. It's a good 2.5-page policy. I also have a sample policy through the policy the ASBSD sample policy for the superintendent, which is also a pretty extensive policy. What I am going to try, I will be doing before now and the next board meeting, is try to simplify those policies. I pulled probably 4 or 5 other school districts too and looked at their policies and try to simplify that into a one-page policy that basically outlines my job duties. Okay. Now, what I do here as a superintendent dual is necessarily going to be what the superintendent in Sioux Falls does or the superintendent in Bowdle. Some of those duties are different from school to school depending on size, but the overarching duties of a superintendent are fairly similar in every district. So I will email that out to you, and then when we come back here in April, or even with feedback between now and then, after you review that sample policy, I can bring that to the board, we can amend it, and certainly approve it at that time. The only other thing that we did not set, and we can do this at the end of the meeting as well, Luke, was the special meeting where we talked about pulling community members in here and going through a lot of the stuff that Andrew's going to go through tonight. So let's make an effort to set that date at the end too before we leave. Okay? That's all I have.
Okay, you got the students of the month already. Just a few things. Last Monday we had senior government days. I talked about it too in the Soups Off this last week. Our kids every year, our senior class goes over. The American Legion from Clear Lake and Gary take our kids over there. They go see court cases that are going on, and then they get a tour of the different offices at the courthouse. It's great. And then the American Legion comes over. They have lunch with the seniors from here and Dubrook. So it's a yearly thing. They did it last week. It was supposed to be actually next Monday, but I don't know. They called and rescheduled, so it ended up being last Monday, which worked out pretty well. The juniors took the National Career Readiness Certificate test the other day, last Tuesday. I don't know if when I sent that, if I had the results or not. Okay, they're on there. So we had 31 students take the 31 juniors. As of today, only 30 of those juniors are still enrolled in school, but we have 31 juniors take tests. 29 of them received a certificate. So there's 3 areas that they get tested in. It's workplace documents, graphic literacy, and what is the other one? Applied mathematics. So those are the 3 areas they take it in. They receive a score. Platinum is the highest you can get. Then it goes gold, silver, bronze, and then you can also you can score where you don't get a certificate. Obviously, we had 2 students do that. But of the 29, 24 of them got silver or higher, and that's important because now with the new graduation requirements, students that take classes in the area of CTE, so if they take anything out in the shop in our school, they would qualify as a senior when they graduate to have what they call the Advanced Career Endorsement on their diploma. That is one of the stipulations. You have to take like a nationally certified test of some sort, and this just happens to be the one that our school gets to give for free from the Department of Labor. And if you score a silver or higher, that's part of the requirement. Now they have to take some classwork and pass the classwork, which all of our students are able to do. And then they would get that endorsement on their graduation diploma and their transcripts that go out to colleges when they're seniors. So it's pretty good. In talking to the contact over at the Department of Labor, for our students to have 5 platinums out of a class size our small is pretty impressive because they don't usually see the platinum scores that often. Usually they'll see maybe 1 or 2 at a school our size. So for our kids to score a platinum and a gold at that level is pretty good. And for basically 29 of our 30 students that we still have remaining to score a certificate is a really good deal. So outside of that, just let you know the Smarter Balance testing dates. We have those scheduled for the high school. They're the 23rd, 24th, and April 2nd. We kind of stagger them. One day will be in the morning, the other day will be afternoon, so we don't miss too many classes. And then one other thing I wanted to add, Mr. Schoenbeck talked about the dual credit today. There's some other stipulations in there outside of the pay that are really kind of deterrents, I guess. So hopefully, and I guess I didn't hear how it came out. Did they end up passing it? One of the deterrents is obviously the price goes up. So right now it's about $125. It would go up to about $215 or a little bit more. And then also if a student withdraws or fails the class, the stipulation in there would be that the student then has to pay the full price. So after they would fail the class, or if they would withdraw, they would have to pay the full price, and then they would be not allowed back in the dual enrollment program until they either enrolled in a class outside of the dual enrollment program, which I'm not sure how they can do, and then pass that class, and then they would be allowed back in. So it's detrimental on a lot of different areas, so we'll have to see how it comes out, but hopefully it didn't pass today. I guess I never did hear how it came out. It was supposed to be talked about on the floor today. So other than that, athletic side, there's just going to be a lot of things this year at the Athletic Directors Convention that are going to potentially change things in the future. I just got all the proposals today. Had a chance to just kind of glance over them, but there's some interesting ones out there. State basketball tournaments will be split next year. That's going to change some basketball schedules. Wrestling is looking at adding possibly girls wrestling, which would put us in a bind here. There's also the talk of changing some events, changing the state track meet from a 2-day event to a 3-day event. So those are just football classifications would change too, based on school size at a certain point and then enrollment size at a certain point. I think we're going to be 11-man anyways, but this would put us on that borderline again. So we would go from 3 9-man classes to 2. So just a lot of things to be talked about and voted on. That's at the end of the month. So hopefully in April I'll have some more information for you on those. Other than that, that's all I got.
Questions for Mr. Bass? Mr. Ralph?
All right, I'm going to start with Elementary Student of the Month for February. In JK, I have Newt Thomas. Kindergarten was Cade Krieger. First grade was Owen Andringa. Second grade, Bailey Borg. Third grade, Levi Moyer. And in the midway was Gavin Matson and Case Schoenbeck. Cardinal card winners in the elementary were Xander Blatchford, Isaiah Carter, Kaylin Thomas, Jacelyn Hall, and Huxley Hennings. In middle school, Student of the Months were Axel Bauman and Zachariah Martinell. And the February Superhero winner was Natalie Hendrickson. I also have some other recognitions that I just was made aware of over the weekend here. We had our dual Destination Imagination teams compete in the regions this last weekend. And out of the 3 that participated for the opportunity to move on to state, all 3 of those teams did. The first team is coached by Heidi Preheim with the dual students of Hayden Weisner, Victoria Preheim, Caitlin Gubrud, Zadie Johnson, and Joyce Andringa. And then the next team was coached by Jane Gubrud. Dual students that participated in that are Nolan Gubrud, Addison Weisner, Tristan Faith, Alexis Schilling, Anna Collins, and Camden Peterhines. And then the final group that had the opportunity to move on to the state competition is coached by Destiny Thomas and Marja Andringa. The students are Ava Megadance, Faith Jocks, Nadine Andringa, Kaylin Thomas, and Stella Stormo. We also had the Rising Star DI present. It's their first year. It's actually a new level of the DI. It's really young, from preschool up to, I think, the 2nd grade maybe. It's coached by Brittany Collins, Mackenzie Conold. Those students are Sophia Ingesser, Rayleigh Conold, Owen Andringa, Addison Shea, Olivia Ludvigston, Amy Andringa, Emma Collins, and Peyton Brooksick. That team just went out and had their first trial run and got to present their types of stuff that they're going to be doing for the first time. So, but all 3 that competed will now move on to the state competition at the end of the month. So congratulations to those DI teams and students. We also have the regional spelling bee. Took place a couple of weeks ago. We had a dual middle school student place 3rd in the regional spelling bee, and we'll move on to the state competition March 21st. So Grayson Gehring got third at regions, so congratulations to her as well. I think that was it for recognitions, and then I have just a few other things. Currently, well, I guess Region Science Fair is March 24th down in Brookings, and we had 8 students that qualified for that, and 6 of them are choosing to continue on to that level. So wish them luck at that. In the elementary, I know a lot of discussions from in this room is how we can help increase our conference totals of parents showing up to them. Elementary in the past has kind of been a non-issue. Parents tend to come. We have a great turnout. But it's always good to look at some things that might increase the middle school and high school. So we recently introduced what's called Sign Up Genius. It is a website, and that's the teachers can just simply send out the link, and then it's put on the parents for a slot that they want to sign up for. It's pretty simple in visiting with. We decided we'd try it here this time. Our conferences are next Friday for the elementary, and those conferences are kind of just those ones where teachers would like to see a certain set of parents, or maybe a struggling kid or a behavior kid, or just tell them how great of things that they're doing. Not all kids are seen during this conference, so we thought it would be a good time to try to test run it and see how it went. So far, the feedback that I've gotten from the elementary teachers is fantastic. I actually sent out a text to a couple of parents that I know really well that used it, and they said it was simple, quick, and so we'll see how it goes and see if it's something that we can expand into different grade levels as we continue to move forward, but it's pretty slick. Last thing, I think Eric mentioned Smarter Balance coming up. Middle school is April 13th through the 16th, and then third grade and midway will test the week of the 20th, so the 20th through the 23rd. I believe that was all I had.
Anything from Todd? Move to Blaine.
What's coming around is the preliminary list for capital outlay. This is some of the things that we've been jotting down as we've been going along, some things that we've been asked about. And like I say, it's the preliminary. We really haven't sat down and gone through any of it, other than some of the technology things. That Mr. Gehring was in on Friday and talked to Chad and I about. I do have included in there the heating controls. We talked about them earlier in the year. The other thing that came up was iPads for music, and that's something that possibly could be paid with some of our REAP funds. So it's very preliminary. The requisition process started today, and they're due by, they have on there, April 4th, I believe it is, that requisitions are due. And so some of these may come off. One of the things that I know that we absolutely are going to have to do is our lawn tractor. We're going to have to replace that. We already have a quote on that at about $30,000, and that's everything. That's the tractor, the broom, the snow blower, and the mower deck. We won't have to replace the bagger attachment on that. So, but just something kind of as a heads up that we're working on that. It's budget time, so. The audit, I contacted Elaine on last week. We still don't have our final audit report. They I've talked to her a couple of different times. They had a person that left their office, so they're kind of scrambling right now to get caught up on everything. She did tell me I should have it by the end of the month, provided everything goes on their end. The lease on our copy machine is up this year. I am in the process of putting together the RFP to get that out. My hope is to have it out so that we can approve the selected vendor at the May meeting and get them in by the end of June, first part of July. One of the things that's coming up is possibly adding one more color copy machine of some kind. Chad and I are discussing that. I've really got mixed feelings on it, to be honest. So as Chad mentioned, they are planning on 2%, so we are going to need a negotiations committee soon. Because the next item, the negotiations workshop is in Sioux Falls on March 18th. They are pretty good. I've got to look and see if I'm available that day or Chad is available, that we could go along, and it kind of a team effort basically. So I would ask that sometime before we adjourn tonight that Mr. Anderson would appoint two people onto that. The last thing that I have on there is Board of Equalization meetings are next Monday night at 7 o'clock. I realize that that's a conflict with our meeting, but talking with Mr. Holbeck when we were going with the strategic planning, he was hoping an hour and a half to 2 hours on that. So the law says that you're supposed to have somebody there, but you walk in and they look at you kind of funny every time. So, but we had appointed in July Luke for Clear Lake and Wade for Gary. And other than that, that's about all that I have.
Can I just ask a question, Blaine, on our capital outlay
Yep.
list that you have here? So for the heat controls, is that the Johnson control?
The Johnson Controls
The
one.
presentation that we had?
Yep.
So are we adding more than what that initial proposal was? Because that was like 103,000.
No, actually, we talked 130,000 to about 150,000, and that was quite a while ago that we talked about that too. So it's kind of a guess. It's on the high side. Everything you see on there is pretty much on the high side, just to kind of cover until we get going.
Okay. I just didn't know if that was in anticipation of a building project, having
No.
more in there for that, or?
No.
Okay.
That would be a definite talking point for us as a board to see if it's something that we would want to do. He quoted us when he first came in here. I don't remember when he did it, and I don't recall the exact amount. But he also wanted to do something that could do it for half of that. So basically retrofit half of our current building just to see how we liked it for half of the building too. So, I mean, we could do it. We could do it potentially with new construction. We could do it with the current building, or we could do something on a much smaller scale as well.
Okay. I just pulled out what he gave us back in May, and that's
Right.
what it had said, so, okay.
What kind of lawn tractor are we looking at?
John Deere.
John Deere.
Like
We've
a
had
cab?
we've had good luck with them. We did buy the Hustler does the majority of the mowing, and we've had good luck with Kibble as far as any of the repairs, and we've had quite a few of those this year. It has been minimal over the years, but that tractor is 12 years old, so
And that has the cab on it?
that's got the cab on it too. And that's what, those cabs are ridiculous, but you almost need something for winter time, because it's about a 3.5, 4 hours of blowing in the mornings just to get things opened up in the back and come around on the sidewalks and then come back through and sweep everything off, so.
Any other questions for Blaine? To NESC with Michelle.
NESC meeting was Monday, February 17th. We didn't have anything to report on for the advisory board meeting in February because it was postponed and rescheduled to March 4th. So I'm assuming you had one.
Yes, we did.
Since now.
Yep.
But at that time, we didn't
Last
have
week.
anything. So, assistant director report, we did get an update. We do surveys to the member districts that are participating in the co-op, and they just went over the results from the survey. So basically 5 would be a top score, and in all different categories it was 4.51 to 4.79 in satisfaction from the member districts to the co-op. So that was favorable results, and they wanted to share that with the board. They do reach out 2 to 3 times a year just to survey and get feedback on what they're doing. We also got an update on the psych caseload study. The assistant director just goes through and tries to look at where they're at for the year, if they're going to be ahead or behind the caseloads, because they do figure about 70 evaluations per FTE as a doable number. If we get above that, then it gets to be a lot on the staff. And from the last conversation that we had, it had come down a little bit. They just had a lot more before wintertime or before the end of the year for evals, but it slowed down. So they're estimating about 67.65 per FTE. We also kind of had some comparison to other schools on their staff to student ratio, and we're right in line with other schools. So we had some feedback on that. We also did review the extended school year ESY rates for 2020, and we did increase those rates slightly and improve those rates. Reading recovery, like we had talked about, we approved to discontinue through dual for reading recovery. Iroquois also did back out, and so it leaves us with Harold, Highmore, and Pierre as the satellite schools. And we talked about an acceptable increase amount for that, and we settled on 2.5% for both of them on the rates. Carrie Nolte is doing the reading recovery, and they're going to reduce her FTE so we can keep the assessment dollar amounts the same for the district. We did also approve to discontinue shared services of the curriculum director for DeSmit and Elkton. Apparently that was a position through NESC that the state paid a portion of the cooperative project, and now they're done paying their portion, so those schools are going to be backing out of that contract for the shared services. We did approve to hire Rodney Freeman as our board negotiator, and we did go through and did the review and did approve to extend the assistant director contract for the next school year for 2021. And that was about it.
Questions? We'll go to facilities discussion. I believe Andrew's going to lead that.
I think he's got hard copies too. Thank you, Eric.
will do. So, happy to be back. Thanks for having me up again tonight. We were last here in early December, and Terry presented some options at that time, and that's what's in front of you tonight. And so I just wanted to kind of set the table for where we've been and where we're at and what we were asked to look at this evening. So when we were here back in December, we looked at 4 different options. Options varied in scope, and from a total project, this one's fine, Blaine, if you want to just start with this one. From a total project budget, we were anywhere from $9 million to $11 million. So we had 4 options, 2 down at about $9 million total project, 1 at 10 and 1 at 11 million. And what Mr. Schoenbeck communicated to us, which was the desire of the board, was to see some options that were like a $7 or $8 million total project cost. Okay, so what we did is we wanted to make sure, again, just reiterate the priorities that have kind of been established and what we've been looking at, but as we knew that to get the project down to a $7 or $8 million total project cost range, that there were going to have to be considerations with what could be done at this time and what fits in the project. So we wanted to remind ourselves of what the priorities were that were stated previously. So safety and security, kitchen, servery, commons. I believe when we got the list from Mr. Schoenbeck, classrooms and gym were both listed as item 3, but as you'll see in the option, and similar to most every other option that's been presented previously, we are proposing taking down a portion of the old armory building, and so in our minds, classrooms had to be higher priority to replace those spaces that were being removed, the gym, and then industrial arts. And so,
Keep in mind, these are the priorities that you 5 gave to me and put together.
correct. So we were using this as resetting our mindset, knowing what we were asked to do, a $7 and $8 million total project cost. And so what we did from there, why don't we go to the next page, please? There we go. Okay, so this is just reminding everyone what we looked at last time. So the first number, the $11,076,000, was total project cost, and then in parentheses on all of those was the construction cost, and that's what we're going to focus on a little bit more tonight, is the construction cost that ultimately results in that total project cost. So these were the 4 options. Next page, please. So what we were tasked to do is to come up with options that fit a $7 million total project cost and an $8 million total project cost. And that total project cost includes the construction value, the amount that we would expect from a general contractor in a bid, but it also includes an estimating contingency at this time, soft costs, which would be construction testing, survey, soil borings, architecture and engineering fees, and some owner contingency. And so that's the difference between 5.7 and 7 and 6.6 and 8. So we use those multipliers for estimating contingency, soft costs, and owner contingency to basically work backwards from those 2 numbers to figure out what can we really afford. When Terry and I started looking at actual design options, and our first step in that process was to really go back and review
not only the four options that were presented in December, but a whole host of options that have been looked at previously, just to see what are we missing, or what are the opportunities, what are the things that we should be looking at. And in our opinion, we landed on the layout that was option A in your packet from last time for a reason. It made sense as far as where to build. It made sense functionally and organizationally with the rest of the school. And so our goal with getting these $7 and $8 million projects was to try to set the project up to, as closely as possible, resemble that final outcome, which is option A. And that's why I wanted to just start with that discussion, just to remind everybody of the layout and the design that was worked on over quite a period of time and settled on by Terry and I and others in our office, the administration, school board, other people as kind of the preferred result. And so that was our mindset, is try and set ourselves up to, as close as possible, accomplish that design or layout, fit within these budget parameters, and respect those priorities that were established by the board and administration. So Blaine, if you want to go next page. So what we did, understanding that within a $7 or $8 million project, that we weren't going to be able to afford all 5 of the items on the list of priorities. So the obvious one to look at not happening initially was item number 5 on that list of priorities, which is the industrial arts. So with that assumption that that existing industrial arts facility was going to stay in place, that is a limiting factor as far as what options are available to us. So if you're looking at the south side of the existing gym, or the south side of those locker rooms to the east side of the existing gym, from that point to the north edge of the existing industrial arts, we need to fit within that footprint. And so what you see kind of faded in the background was the previous plan, where we had both the gym and the new kitchen and servery fitting in that space. That's because we were taking down the industrial arts and moving the new industrial arts further to the south. So if we can't do that, we're really limited by only being able to fit that gym, the new gym, between the existing school to the north and the existing industrial arts to the south. So the new home, finding the new home for the kitchen and servery. Again, our mindset here was to try and get this project as simple as possible, while addressing as many of the priorities as we could. And so not building new square footage when it wasn't necessary. And so we thought the most economical thing for this option was to renovate the existing, what is kitchen and cafeteria, and create that as the renovated servery. Now this option probably looks familiar to all of you. This is really option C from last time. But what we are doing is stripping out all the extra stuff, all the extra renovation that doesn't fall under one of those 5 priorities. So number 1 was safety and security. So we're addressing that by doing secure entrances at the elementary and high school. We are no longer in this plan at this time that proposed addition to the elementary school office area. We have stripped that out. So we're only doing the renovation at those 2 spaces. So we think the construction cost again of that is $120,000. Second item was kitchen servery commons, $1.76 million. What is included in that number is the renovated kitchen and servery in purple there, where the existing kitchen and cafeteria is. It includes also the renovation of that yellow area that's labeled ramp in the center.
because we really need that to be opened up as best we can to have a stronger connection between the servery and the commons. And then lastly, it's that bigger rectangle box of the commons, which includes the seating area, but it also includes the concession stand and the restrooms and all of the circulation space. So instead of breaking out and trying to quantify just the individual pieces, we were quantifying any circulation that we felt was necessary for that function with that specific line item. So again, all of those things, a combination of new and renovation, is all under that 1.76 million for item number 2, the kitchen servery. Third item is the classrooms. That would be the 4 classrooms right there that Blaine is highlighting, and the section of hallway that's associated with those classrooms. So all new square footage, $700,000 for that section of 4 classrooms. The next one is the gym at 2.9 million. It includes the gym itself. It includes coach's office and storage to the east, and it includes circulation on the north side. So we wanted to make sure that we were capturing the circulation that was, in our minds, associated with that component in the price for that component. So we believe the cost of the gym, all new construction, 2.9 million. So we add those 4 things, which were satisfying, in our minds, the minimum requirements of the priorities, the first 4 items on the priorities. We add in the demo that's needed, and we also add in site work. Now, one thing to note on site work is we did reduce that from the $765,000 that was included last time. Again, knowing that if we're trying to get down to $7 or $8 million, we can't have everything. We needed to cut where we thought was made sense. So we add all that together, we're at 6.14 million. Earlier, the previous slide showed to get to $7 million total project, we needed to be at 5.7 construction, and to get 8 million, we needed to be 6.6. So we're right in the middle of that. So now, Blaine, there's one more that's called cost statements. So this was a quick exercise to say it's less of a design problem. We've done lots of design options. It's more about math at this point. So here is the quick line item estimate for option E. Demolition, 28,500 square feet of new construction, 6,000 square feet of renovation, 600,000 in site construction. Make note that that's reduced from your previous options, which is a total of 6.127 for a total project cost in yellow down there at 7.5. So we're right in the middle of the two. So the next thing we did is we said, we were asked to do 7 million and 8 million total project costs. We're in the middle. How do we get this down to 7 million? So the next option we're calling E1. That option, all we did there is we reduced the size of the gym. So the gym was previously planned to have a 94-foot court. 84 feet would be typical high school. So we were proposing to take 10 feet out of the court. We also had additional space at the ends of the court for seating. We would have to take 10 feet out of that end, and so, or one of the ends, or half and half, or whatever the dimensions are. But the goal here was to take out 20 feet in length by the 100-foot width, and so 2,000 square feet out of the gym. So you'll see the new construction is 26.5 instead of 28.5. Renovation stays the same. Everything else stays the same, but that reduction in the gym saved us the dollars to get us down closer to that $7 million target. The next option is, if it was $8 million total project, what would we do to or what are the options for getting us from 7.5 up to 8? What would we put back in the project? So we added, the gym stays the same. So the new construction of 28.5 is the same as it was in the original option E. And then renovation, we added 5,500 square feet of renovation. So all of the additional spaces that we had talked about renovating, locker rooms and a room within the library and all of those spaces is about 5,000 square feet. And so all of those other additional scopes of renovation that really didn't fall under one of those original priorities, and that was why we initially stripped them out, those would be able to get put back in the project. Or the other option would be take some of that money, do some of those renovations, and put any other additional money into the existing industrial arts facility. So in our minds, the kind of most basic option to satisfy those 4 priorities was this option E. We reduced the size of the gym to get it down to a $7 million project. We keep the gym the way it was originally designed and add additional scope of renovation work back in, and that's the $8 million project.
What's that?
3 estimates and that plan option E. So any questions or comments, or we can go back to the actual plan itself and talk about that, whatever.
Is it possible, do you have the original plan that we proposed when we
Yeah.
did our bond
Why don't you,
proposal?
there's one more PDF file on that drive, Blaine. It's basically option A in that packet from December.
Well, that's what I was wondering. So option A is the original
Yes.
proposal.
Yep. Yeah, one more page and then that plan would be there. Yeah, this was the end result from last time, option A.
You're converting the entire current cafeteria and server.
Kitchen and servery, yes. And it,
Down that ramp, the commons.
correct.
So the size is the same.
The size, basically the size of the renovated kitchen and servery would match the size of the kitchen and servery that we were proposing in this option.
Kids would still be eating in the new commons.
In the new comments.
Yep.
I see.
So we, again, the goal with this option E was to still maintain the sizes that we, in our opinion, thought were the most appropriate for these different functions. So when we drew this plan, that was the size kitchen and servery we felt was appropriate for a district of your size. So we weren't going to show an option that had a kitchen and servery that was significantly smaller than that. And so that existing kitchen cafeteria is basically exactly the size of that, what was proposed as the new cafeteria, or kitchen servery, excuse me. Classrooms are the same. The commons is slightly smaller because the gym has shifted to the north in option E. And we were just eliminating any additional, in option E itself, we were eliminating any additional interior renovation outside of the things that fit under those 5 priorities.
So on all of these, you're putting a 10% estimating contingency,
Correct.
and the original one was 5.
Correct. It's a bigger project, so the math is in our favor. And it was explored for a longer period of time, where these newest ones are quicker exercises. And the last thing I want to do is to tell you for X project budget that this is what you can get, and then get into the project and that's not the case.
Could you give me a breakdown of or give us a breakdown of soft costs? What makes up the 7.25%, I guess?
Sure. So the fee that we were going to propose for architecture and engineering was 6.5%. The other 0.75% would be construction testing, survey, soil borings, typical owner-provided scopes. Yes, yeah, correct. So I don't have the exact breakdown of what the surveys, soil borings, and construction testing would be, but for a project in this $6 to $10 million construction cost, 0.75% is a good number. Plus minus, I mean, it'll be very close. So the one thing I would add with all of these options is, and I've said this before, but I'll mention it again. You know, we are just scratching the surface with our services as far as putting these plans together. We're coming up with concepts that kind of at a 30,000-foot level we believe will work. We're trying to assign appropriate costs to those based on our history to give you the tools to make decisions on what you want to do as far as scope and budget. And once the project would proceed with whatever budget is established, there's hundreds and hundreds of decisions that have to be made with budget and scope and everything else in mind to keep the project on track. And so, less importantly in my mind is, I want the doors to the gym here or there, but more importantly is it's a gym and it's a kitchen. It's what are the pieces, what are the components, what are the sizes of the components, because the final details of the commons can get 2 feet larger, or the restrooms, whatever the changes that happen through the course of the design process will be part of that process. And what I think this initial study of these different options should give you is an understanding that if we set the total project cost at 11 million or at 7 million, we have a relatively good understanding of what scope that buys. I think that's the bigger key. Where the components that fit and end up may look a lot like the plans, or one of the plans that's proposed may look totally different in the end. But those now 5 or 6 options that we've presented between the last board meeting and this board meeting should give you a good handle on what's a realistic scope to expect for whatever the budget is that is established.
I just had a couple questions about option D. I mean, I know that one is the one where the Cardinal Gym is converted into the Commons, and then the kitchen and serving area is kind of the wrestling room. We're adding on the gym, so we would have 2 gyms when we're done with it, and then adding on classrooms and kind of redoing. The price tag on that one is 9.1 million. So I'm just kind of wondering, since we're repurposing so much space, you know, the gym to commons, I'm just curious on the price tag on that. What needs to be renovated in the gym to make it a commons area?
So, you know, one of the things that we would look at for renovating that Cardinal gym into a commons is what could be done to get some natural light in there and create a nicer front entry to the school, a nicer place for kids to hang out and eat lunch. So it's, you know, to me it's about more than just throwing tables and chairs in there and calling it a commons. It's doing some things to make it a better, more attractive environment. It'd be what can be done to open it up more to the existing corridor, circulation. You know, there's a number of things that would be included in that. One of the issues, because we did, Terry and I were discussing this one again this morning, specifically option D, and the problem with option D is putting the commons in the Cardinal gym. The goal of this one was to try and create a more economical solution by taking the Cardinal gym, which people have said is not terribly functional as a gym, and using it as something else. And we looked at the square footage, and we looked at the square footage compared to what we wanted to do for the commons. It was fairly similar. And so that was the starting point of this option. The challenge is then to fit and make the kitchen servery function and get it close to that commons. We were displacing other things and causing additional kind of domino effect of additional renovations that would have to happen. You know, so moving the wrestling and renovating that space. So it just increased the amount of renovation because of that domino effect. The other thing that I'm not a big fan of on this option is those classrooms, other than the one on the south, end up all interior with no natural light. You know, so the option to get those, at least 3 of those new classrooms with exterior windows and natural light is, I think, a better solution. So. So, great comments, and I appreciate the comments. The one thing that I would say is you know, we were developing these concepts without a ton of input from faculty and administration, which is not the way we would prefer to do it. And so there would be things that would need to be hashed out. And that's with any of the options.
I do like the concept of option D, because I think for the community, you know, the gym was a real hang-up. We're repurposing a gym into something more useful and still getting a new large enough gym for the future. So I do like the concept of it, but like you said, I mean, we had a lot of things to work out here, and And the price is still at this point, you know, kind of on the higher end.
As far as the materials on the gym, I mean, exterior, I'm looking at brick on that, or is that? The way we've done a majority of gyms recently is precast, insulated precast panels. Now, there are options to do a thin brick inlaid into the precast panel if you wanted that look. But if you think about the majority of the wall surface of the gym, it ends up being interior surface, you know, not facing the exterior. The wall on this option specifically would be the east wall of the gym would be exposed. Otherwise, most of the rest of it is interior and covered up, or visible above adjacent roof planes. So, insulated precast is a good solution for a gym. Durable, efficient. You know, that's what we were in the original option when we were building the industrial arts, as well as we were initially thinking all of that was precast.
What kind of cost savings would you had if you wanted to do a steel facility for your gym?
Pre-engineered metal building or steel, meaning
Like a steel beam structured facility, sloped roof, not a flat roof, actual steel facility.
So the precast option would have precast wall panels, and those would support bar joists for the roof structure. It's an economical system because your exterior finish, your insulation, and your interior finish are all within that single panel, and it also structurally is holding up your roof. So there are many reasons why that's the way we build gyms. I don't know that there are substantial savings at all by doing a steel structure. You'd be doing infill walls and other things. I just, off the top of my head, I can't think of reasons why that would be a good solution, or that the savings would be so substantial that it would be worth considering. Now, steel being columns and beams, bar joists, whatever, is different than pre-engineered metal building, which is a whole other animal. And yes, it would be cheaper, but it's not a great system. And it really would be challenging in this specific circumstance because of building it where you're surrounded by the rest of either existing building on one side, new construction on other sides. A pre-engineered metal building would be a major challenge, and not a good building system in the long term for school.
I think it's definitely nice to see these additional options, especially on paper. The E1 and E2, definitely good to see, and I think it's going to be a good starting point for when we schedule that meeting at the end of the month. It gives us a much broader price range to look at, and I think that's going to be very beneficial. Thank you again for coming up, Andrew.
Not a problem.
Very appreciated. Does anybody else have any other questions for him right now? Are you open to answer questions via email
Yeah.
to us
Yeah.
between now and then if we come up with anything? Did you guys have any other questions?
I just wondered does everybody have what they need in front of them in terms of options? If you don't, I can put that together and send that all out. Good question, Wade?
I think we got everything that he talked about.
No problem. If you have questions, you want to just filter those through
Yeah, yep.
Mr. Schoenbeck? Only pass along the easy ones.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks again.
Thanks, Andrew.
Oh, okay. Blaine's copying over some files right now, so while he's doing that, let's go back to that, to the negotiations committee. I believe last year, that workshop, was it just Jackie that went? Because you were on the committee last year.
She just
Okay.
went. But I'd like to go this year, if that's all right. Stay on it.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I guess with me going off, I just assume not do it. I haven't done it in the past. So if Wade or Michelle, if one of you would want to. And obviously, there's nothing saying that you have to go to that workshop on the 18th. I think that was the first time that we sent anybody.
Yeah,
it
it
might have been the
was.
first time that they had it. I don't remember seeing.
No, we've
that
gone in the
previous-
past.
We have.
Yeah.
I've just never been
But
on
that was the first time Jackie
negotiation.
had went.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say as long as one person on that committee goes, that's going to would be beneficial. Either you two have a preference.
That's fine, I can do it.
Okay. So we will,
I won't be able to make the 18th, but
yeah, that's fine.
Wade, there are, did you get the email at all? There are other dates. I think they're putting it on like 3 or 4 dates. I can send those to you.
okay.
Oh,
Sometimes they do those online. Is this not one that they offer online?
It looked like there was, you could go do something online too. Because I've been watching that.
We'll explore that and find out.
I'll send it to you if it's something of interest for you.
The 18th is in Sioux Falls, correct?
It's in Sioux Falls. Let me know if you're going, because the registration is coming up here soon, so.
So does that need to be an action item, Blaine, to appoint them? Or can it just be?
Your
okay.
appointees.
Gotcha.
Do we know the date when we'll actually be doing, when the negotiation, when we meet, or what
Won't yet.
the, April? What's the,
All I can tell you is as soon as we find out for sure where we're at after the legislation's done, we're gonna try and get it done as soon as possible, but at the same time, allowing the teachers to have some time to meet too, so.
sure.
Historically, we've always got it done in a nice, timely manner, so.
All right, so you're good with that, Blaine?
Yep, we're good.
Good to go now? Need a motion to enter executive session for a personnel matter per South Dakota Codified Law 1-25-2 subsection 1 at 7:19 PM.
Motion.
Second?
That was Jess and Wade. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, need a motion to extend the contracts of Eric Bass, high school principal, and Todd Ralph, middle school elementary principal. Deb and Jess. Any questions or discussions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Do you want to read the motion?
Okay, motion to accept the resignation of Debbie Kennedy, a school board member, effective at such time as replacement is selected and qualified as prescribed by law.
Need a motion?
So move.
Second.
Wade and Michelle.
Just a quick overview in regards to the replacement. What we will be doing here is advertising for applicants for the board position, where anyone can complete what's called a statement of interest, and I'll probably have Blaine collect those, and then at the April board meeting, we'll take that applicant pool, or I should say the board will take that applicant pool and come to a consensus as to who that replacement will be for Deb. So I will be posting that in the paper, social media, district website, those types of things, to find a replacement.
Can you tell how long they'll run, their term would be?
The term will run till the next election. Our vacancy notice has to go in the paper for the next, basically for Luke's position by March 15th, which basically pushes us to the next election. So whoever comes on will serve from the April board meeting all the way until the next election which would be the election of 2021. And at the time of the 2021 election, both Jessica and Michelle's terms are up, and then whoever fills in for Deb's position will also be up. So we would be voting on 2 3-year terms and one person to fill the remaining third year for Deb in the summer 2021 election. So just a little overview in order to keep that staggered approach to the board.
Do you guys have any other questions on that, or are we all good there? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Sustain.
Deb abstained. And the board would like to thank Deb for her many years of service on this now and previous as well, so. Any other?
Community meeting and
Oh, yeah,
strategic
that's right,
meeting.
That's right.
Let's talk about the strategic planning first. We talked about it a little bit before we got here earlier. I'd like to know where you guys want to go with this for the 16th with Jim coming up, which is what we have planned right now. So basically, do we want to do it with or without Deb, or do we want to wait until we get our full board after April?
I guess I would like to wait until April.
I would too. We can try to catch them up a little bit to what we're doing and what the strategic planning meeting is kind of about, and then that way they'll be there.
So April or May, just depending on how dates line up, but that would be my suggestion.
I guess we'll just have to see what Jim's schedule is. I guess I look at it as a working document. I understand that this person, in theory, I'm guessing that they're potentially would be attending this meeting coming up if they have interest in they could be attending it as a public meeting as well. But we've waited 2.5 months to have this meeting, and I guess we're gonna prolong it again, but
Are we starting the process all over again with Jim and having feedback from this new member contributing, or do we have enough topics for Jim to kind of get going on?
I would say we have enough topics.
Okay. That's fine. I'm okay Waiting.
Waiting?
I'd just like to have the new person, whoever that may be, involved.
Okay, I'll look at some dates and I'll talk to Jim and we'll go from there. Community meeting, next meeting between now and the April board meeting. Eric, you got your calendar? Um, how does March 30th look?
I'm gone.
Uh, 23rd?
Michelle would have a conflict that night.
Yep.
I do too.
How about April 2nd?
It's fine for me.
April 6th? You're gonna give me a couple dates here.
Yeah, I can,
That's fine too.
2nd or the 6th.
Do we have track meets at all? Either of those days? Okay. They would be fine with
April
either.
2nd or April 6th both work for everyone?
Yes.
That works for everybody?
Yep.
Okay, let me check the master calendar tomorrow, and I'll send out which one it'll be. We'll do a 5 o'clock, or no, 6 o'clock start, excuse me. All right,
Anything else?
Do we know, have you made invitations to
I
any
have, I've
communities?
reached out to probably 4 or 5 people, and now having this date, I'll wrap it up, and I'll send those names out to you as soon as I get it wrapped up.
Sounds good.
I will also send out all of the PDFs for, that Andrew went through tonight too. So you got an electronic copy, assuming you downloaded them.
I've got them.
Okay. That's all I got.
Any other questions? Need a motion to adjourn.
Motion. Second.
Names.
Jessica.
I got that one.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.